Now, in the studio today, we welcome into Compass FM for the first time for one of them. We've got Pete Daly. Is it Daly or Daly?
Daly. Go with Daly.
Hi, Daly. Hi, Pete. How are you? He is the Road Safety Coordinator from the Waimakariri District Council, and also Emma Feathery here from the Hiranui District Council. She also has a road safety hat on. Hi, how are you?
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having us.
You're more than welcome. So, watch your speed and wear your seatbelt are everyday road safety messages that we seem to be constantly pushing out with a bit of extra emphasis in Canterbury this month. Emma, why is that?
Thank you, Steph. For the month of November, many people, including Pete and myself, are collaborating on our education initiatives. On the road, our residents will notice a greater focus on road policing as our police boost their numbers in the district. Sometimes this will be double what we're used to. Yeah. Their focus will be seatbelts and speed, two things that make the biggest difference to people getting hurt on our roads. Why are we doing this to you? Last year, the Canterbury region had the highest fatality rate for the last 6 years on record, something really sad. Wow. This year, we're only in October, and we're set to bypass that number. We haven't even made it to the busy summer holiday period where we traditionally see the rise.
Yeah, Christmas especially, don't we?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, with people maybe not paying attention and they just want to get to their destination. So, hey Pete, why is speed such a big topic for road safety?
Yeah, speed's kind of the go-to topic when you talk about, the advertising and the road safety stuff. And that's just a little bit of background on that. Speed causes some crashes. Like people fall off the outside of a corner because they're going too fast. Yeah. But in every other crash, for whatever reason that crash happens, speed determines the outcome of that crash.
Gotcha.
So if a crash happens to happen because someone's pulled out of a side road in front of you, you're better to be doing a lower speed than a higher speed when someone pulls out in front of you. And obviously the cause is someone pulling out in front of you. But the speed that you're travelling at determines firstly whether the crash will happen or not. And if it does, it'll determine, how serious that's going to be. And ideally, we'd like no crashes to happen. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, that'd be great. Or could predict.
In an ideal world, there wouldn't be any crashes. Yeah. But as long as crashes happen, if they happen at lower speeds, there's going to be less people getting killed and injured. So, and that's why speed is such a big issue, because it doesn't just impact the crashes caused by speed, it impacts every crash that happens. It's a determinant factor in the outcome of a crash.
And your reaction time as well too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, when you pull up to a giveaway, have a look to your right, the faster a car is going, the harder it is to judge, the gap. Is it good for me to pull out now or not? Yeah,
absolutely. So driver education, I imagine, will come into that as well too, Pete.
Yeah. I've been a driving instructor for a little while, for some years actually, and I really like it when people say, hey, driver education is the answer, because what they're talking about generally is that driver education is the answer for everyone else.
Right.
No one thinks they need it themselves. No one thinks that they need to change. Everyone wants change, but no one wants to change. So people are generally driving around seeing the mistakes that other people make, but they're not seeing their own mistakes.
Gotcha.
And, the speed that they're travelling at will make a difference when someone pulls out in front of them or turns across their path. Simple as that.
So, Pete, you're the Road Safety Coordinator for the Waimakariri District. If we can just briefly stay with you, with your role, do you get lots of requests for residents to slow down the traffic in their street?
Yeah, you'd be surprised at the number of requests that we get for, my street, these cars are going too fast. What are you going to do about it? We want you to put in speed bumps. We want you to put in traffic calming. The reality is, people would feel safer in their communities if traffic was going a little bit slower. And we're only talking about just a little bit, Like, Just if I can just go back to what Emma raised in regard to the focus that police are putting on that, especially in the next month or so, anyone who doesn't exceed the speed limit just doesn't need to worry about the police.
No.
It's as simple as that, Like, remarkably, the only people who get speeding tickets are people who are speeding.
Exactly.
It's quite striking, really. I've noticed there could be a pattern here.
Yeah, look, I think you're right there, Pete. Thank you for explaining that. Hey, Emma, I understand you also have a message about restraints for our listeners.
Thank you, Steve. It's actually really simple. Wearing a seatbelt increases your chance of surviving a crash by 40%. For Pete and I, not wearing a seatbelt was completely unnatural. It'd be like walking down High Street not wearing pants. Yep. We just wouldn't do it to you. It would be terrible. So as a driver, be responsible for the occupants in your vehicle. Make sure they're buckled up before you begin the journey. And if you have a friend or family member that occasionally doesn't wear a seatbelt, have a hard conversation with them.
Yeah.
Tell them you love them and that you don't want to see them putting themselves at any unnecessary risk.
No, and also the stress for you as the driver if they choose not to, and then you don't set out. No one sets out to have an accident, right? So you can't stop that from happening. Hey, so Pete, can you give us a bit of a background to the seatbelts? I know it seems like a silly question for some people, but what makes them so important realistically?
Yeah, well, look, if you go back, the worst year for killing people on the roads in New Zealand was 1974, and we killed 843 people that year, which is just horrific. And that's when every household had one car. It didn't become law to wear seatbelts until 1976.
Gosh.
And then it was 2 years later that they decided it might be a good idea if we wore them in the back seat too. So, and that really has made a significant difference to the number of people getting killed on the roads. The thing with seatbelts is they're a primary safety system in a car. Like most cars now, they're full of airbags. Right? And you'll see on the covers on the airbags, quite often they write 3 letters, SRS.
What is that?
Supplemental Restraint System.
No way.
So what the car manufacturer is saying is that these are a secondary system which will only benefit you if you're wearing your primary system, which is your seatbelt. Now, can you imagine, you're driving down the road, your airbag goes off and you're not wearing your seatbelt. You're going to be going forward at the same time as the airbag is trying to stop you going forward. So it's a supplementary system to that airbag. Side intrusion beams, pre-tensioning seatbelts, all these things are designed to keep you safer in your car in the event of a crash. But none of it counts for a tin of peas if you're not wearing your seatbelt.
No.
So simple as that. And I guess it comes down to most people just don't think they're going to crash. If you've been driving around for 20 years and you haven't crashed, well, what makes you think you're going to crash? And if you're not going to crash, what do you need your seatbelt for?
I think we all know those people go, I've never had a crash. I'm a great driving record. That's never going to happen. Yes, I'm sure you've heard that.
Until it does.
many times in the police, I'm sure there, Pete. It was just interesting. I didn't actually know SRS. That's actually what it meant.
Yeah, sure. I think I first saw that in Holdens.
Yeah.
But if when you start paying attention to these things, you see it in all sorts of cars. They're a supplementary restraint system.
Well, exactly. The airbag isn't going to hold you in the car when you unfortunately you're not in your seat because you're not wearing your seatbelt.
No, and of the people that get killed on the roads these days, around a quarter of them each year are found not to have been wearing their seatbelt. There's a quarter. I mean, that's bonkers. That's 100 people that had they been wearing their seatbelts, probably at least half of them may have survived that crash.
Better chance. So, absolutely.
You're giving yourself a better chance.
Yeah, so true. Hey, that's unfortunately all we have time for today. It's been a pleasure having Pete Daly and Emma Feathery, both road safety coordinators, Pete from Waimakere District Council and Emma from Hiranui District Council. So just watch your speed, wear your seatbelt. It's really not that hard, is it? Make it clack.
Thank you.
Make it clack.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
Compass FM.